The battle that followed was less a fight than a demonstration of how much human military technology had evolved. The USS Retribution opened fire first, its plasma cannons turning the lead Vorthan destroyer into expanding clouds of superheated metal and debris. The coordinated attack from the human fleet lit up space like a stellar storm. From the colony observation deck, Captain Jake Morrison watched in awe as humanity's deadliest fleet dismantled the Vorthan force with surgical precision. The heavy cruiser USS Thunderbolt flanked the remaining destroyers while squadrons of fighters swarmed around the alien ships like angry insects. Each human vessel moved with practiced efficiency, the result of years of secret warfare across the frontier. The Vorthan ships tried to fight back, their purple energy weapons lashing out at the human fleet. But their firepower was scattered among too many targets. The human ships absorbed the attacks on their heavy armor and returned devastating volleys that tore through alien hulls like paper. Commander Zektar's voice came through the communication. System one final time, a shriek of rage and disbelief. "Impossible! Humans are weak! The Alliance fled from us like frightened children!" Admiral Tucker's response came through the fleet-wide channel, his voice carrying the weight of humanity's long-suppressed anger. "The Alliance is not here, Commander. We are. And we remember every single human life your empire has taken over the years." The USS Sovereign moved into position like a giant predator, its main weapons charged with enough energy to power an entire city. When the super dreadnought fired, the concentrated beam of energy split the largest Vorthan ship from bow to stern. The alien destroyer broke apart in a cascade of explosions that briefly outshone the system's star. On the surface of New Haven, people emerged from their shelters to see human ships descending through the atmosphere. These were not warships, but transport vessels carrying medical supplies, food, and equipment that the colony had desperately needed for 7 years. The sight of Earth technology landing on their world brought tears to many eyes. Dr. Lisa Carter found herself treating wounded personnel from the fleet. They had been injured in battles across the galaxy, fighting to liberate other human colonies. A young Marine named Tony Martinez sat in her medical bay, bandages covering cuts from recent combat. "How many battles have you fought?" Dr. Carter asked as she checked his wounds. Tony grinned despite his injuries. "Stopped counting after we retook Alpha Centauri. Admiral Tucker says we are not stopping until every human colony is free and every alien empire knows not to mess with Earth's children." The Marine's confidence was infectious. These were not the demoralized troops of a retreating army. These were soldiers who had been winning a secret war for years, growing stronger with each victory. They carried themselves like people who had never known defeat. In space above New Haven, the last Vorthan ship tried to escape. The destroyer's engines flared as it attempted to reach hyperspace, but human fighters were already in pursuit. The USS Guardian intercepted the fleeing vessel with a precise shot that disabled its drive systems without destroying it completely. "This is Captain Amanda Foster of the USS Guardian." A new voice joined the communication. "Admiral, we have disabled the last enemy ship. The crew is requesting surrender." Admiral Tucker's reply was swift. "Take them prisoner. They will be tried for war crimes against human civilians. Make sure they live long enough to stand trial." As the battle ended, the scope of the human victory became clear. 3 Vorthan destroyers had been destroyed or captured without the loss of a single human ship. The orbital platforms the aliens had deployed were nothing but floating debris. The blockade that had trapped New Haven was broken completely. Captain Jake Morrison met Admiral Tucker face-to-face when the Admiral's shuttle landed in the colony's main plaza. The older man stepped out wearing a dress uniform decorated with medals from conflicts most people had never heard of. His handshake was firm, and his eyes held depths of experience that spoke of years fighting in the void between stars. "Admiral, I cannot begin to thank you enough," Jake said, his voice tight with emotion. Tucker held up a hand to stop him. "Captain Morrison, you and your people survived 7 years on your own in hostile space. You built a thriving colony from nothing and stood ready to fight impossible odds to protect your families. We should be thanking you." The Admiral looked around at the colony with genuine admiration. "What you have accomplished here is remarkable. Most settlements would have collapsed within months of being abandoned. You have done what humans do best. You adapted, you survived, and you made a better life for your children." As night fell over New Haven, the colonists celebrated with their rescuers. The main plaza filled with people sharing food and stories. Children who had never seen anyone from outside their world stared in wonder at the Marines and sailors who had come to save them. The celebration continued late into the night under alien stars that no longer seemed threatening. But Jake noticed Admiral Tucker standing apart from the festivities, gazing up at the sky with the look of a man whose work was far from finished. The captain approached the Admiral, curious about what thoughts occupied such a legendary military leader. "Admiral, what happens now?" Jake asked. "Will you be taking us back to Earth?" Tucker turned to face him, and Jake saw determination in the older man's eyes. "That depends on what you and your people want, Captain. Earth is still under Alliance control. The politicians who abandoned you are still in power. If you return, you will be going back to a system that has already betrayed you once." The Admiral pointed up at the human fleet that still filled the sky above them. "But if you choose to stay, you will have the protection of the Terran Defense Force. We are building something new out here on the frontier. A covenant that says no human will ever be abandoned again." Jake considered this offer carefully. Earth was home, the blue world where humanity had been born. But New Haven was also home now. These people had built a life here through their own sweat and determination. They had proven they could survive anything the galaxy threw at them. "What exactly are you offering us?" Jake asked. Admiral Tucker smiled for the first time since arriving. "We are offering you a choice that the Alliance never gave you. The choice to remain free and independent, protected by people who share your values. The choice to be part of something larger than politics and treaties." Around them, the celebration continued. Dr. Carter was talking with fleet medical officers about new treatments for diseases they had struggled with for years. Chief Engineer Bobby Martinez was examining equipment that could upgrade every system in the colony. Security Chief Danny Walsh was learning about weapons that could defend against any alien threat. "We have liberated 86 other colonies," Admiral Tucker continued. "Each one faced the same choice you face now. Stay and build something new, or return to the system that abandoned them. So far, every single colony has chosen to stay." Jake looked out at his people, these 12,000 humans who had refused to give up hope. They had survived abandonment, isolation, and alien threats. They had built a home on an alien world and raised children who knew no other sky. These were not refugees anymore. They were pioneers. "Admiral," Jake said, making his decision, "I think we would like to hear more about this covenant of yours." Tucker's smile widened. "Excellent, Captain, because we have a lot of work to do. The Vorthan Empire will not forget what happened here. Today, other alien powers will take notice as well. They need to understand that humanity is no longer the scattered, weak species that the Alliance represented." As the Admiral spoke, more human ships continued arriving through hyperspace. Medical vessels, construction ships, and supply transports brought everything the colony needed to not just survive, but thrive. The abandonment was truly over, but Jake sensed this was not an ending. It was a beginning. The galaxy was about to learn that humans were far more dangerous than anyone had imagined, especially when they were protecting their own people. 3 months after the liberation of New Haven, the colony had transformed beyond recognition. New buildings rose alongside the old ones, incorporating advanced technology from Admiral Tucker's fleet. The mining operation had expanded tenfold, with equipment that made their old tools look like primitive artifacts from ancient history. But the most significant change was not in buildings or machines. It was in the spirit of the people. For the first time in 7 years, the colonists looked up at the stars without fear. Human patrol ships moved through the system on regular schedules, and the communication array buzzed with traffic from dozens of other liberated colonies. Captain Jake Morrison, now wearing the uniform of a Terran Defense Force colonel, stood in the colony's new command center. Holographic displays showed the positions of human fleets across the frontier, each one a guardian of scattered settlements that had once been written off as lost. The network of free colonies now stretched across 50 star systems. The politicians on Earth are calling us rogue operators, Admiral Tucker said, joining Jake at the tactical display. They want us to return to Alliance space for negotiations. They promise to find diplomatic solutions with the same alien empires that were ready to murder 12,000 civilians. Jake studied the display showing human fleet positions. Each icon represented hundreds of ships and thousands of crew members who had chosen freedom over politics. What is our response to Earth's demands? Tucker's smile was sharp as a blade. We tell them that diplomacy is what happens after we have reminded the galaxy why humans are the most dangerous species it has ever encountered. Fear keeps the peace, better than any treaty. Dr. Lisa Carter had been promoted to Chief Medical Officer for the entire sector, coordinating medical care across dozens of colonies. Her new office overlooked the colony's expanded medical complex, where doctors from across human space shared knowledge and developed new treatments. The facilities here now rivaled anything on Earth. Jake, you should see the latest reports, Lisa said, entering the command center with a tablet full of data. Colony populations are growing faster than we ever projected. Refugees from failed Alliance policies are arriving every week, seeking sanctuary in our space. The numbers were impressive. New Haven now housed 18,000 people, with more arriving on every transport ship. Other colonies showed similar growth as humans fled the Alliance's failing protection to seek security under the Terran Defense Force banner. Ryan Brooks had evolved from a simple tech specialist into the commander of an early warning network that stretched across multiple star systems. His sensors could detect alien military movements 3 systems away, giving human fleets time to respond to any threat. The boy who had once struggled to maintain one colony's equipment now coordinated technology across an entire region. Admiral, we are picking up increased chatter from the hegemony, Ryan reported from his expanded control station. Intelligence suggests they are mobilizing a response fleet. Our success has not gone unnoticed. Tucker nodded grimly. He had expected this development. How many colonies are we protecting now? 93 confirmed, with more requesting our protection every week, Ryan answered. But sir, the hegemony fleet they are assembling could have over 1,000 ships. Even with our allies, we might be outnumbered. The hegemony was an alliance of alien species that had dominated this region of space for centuries. They viewed human expansion as a threat to their established order. A confrontation had been inevitable from the moment Admiral Tucker fired. The first shot at New Haven, Chief Engineer Bobby Martinez had transformed from a man struggling to keep old equipment running into the director of a massive industrial complex. New Haven now produced its own starships, weapons, and advanced technology. The mining operation that had once barely supplied one colony now fueled an entire fleet. Admiral, the new shipyards are ahead of schedule, Bobby reported during the daily briefing. We will have 12 new cruisers ready for service next month, plus 30 destroyers and support vessels. The orbital platforms are also coming online. The transformation was remarkable. In just 3 months, New Haven had become a major industrial center capable of supporting military operations across multiple star systems. Similar development was happening at other liberated colonies, creating a network of production facilities that could support an expanding fleet. But it was not just about military power. The colonies were developing their own culture, distinct from both Earth and the Galactic Alliance. Children born on alien worlds learned about freedom and self-reliance. Adults who had been abandoned by politicians learned to rely on themselves and their neighbors. Mayor Helen Price had been elected to represent New Haven in the Colonial Council, a governing body that coordinated policy across all liberated settlements. The council met by holographic conference, with representatives from dozens of worlds participating in decisions that affected millions of human lives. The vote is unanimous, Mayor Price announced during one such meeting. All member colonies support the Sovereignty Declaration. We are no longer subjects of Earth or members of the Galactic Alliance. We are free and independent human settlements under the protection of the Terran Defense Force. The declaration was a formal break with the past, but it reflected a reality that had existed since Admiral Tucker's fleet first arrived at New Haven. These colonies were no longer dependent on outside support. They had become self-sufficient, communities capable of defending themselves and expanding into new territory. Earth's response to the declaration was swift and predictable. The Alliance government demanded that the rogue colonies return to Alliance control immediately. They threatened economic sanctions and military action against any settlement that refused to comply. Admiral Tucker's response was broadcast across every human colony in the sector and transmitted back to Earth on all frequencies. Standing on the bridge of the USS Sovereign, surrounded by the flags of 93 free colonies, he delivered humanity's answer to those who would abandon their own people. To the politicians on Earth who traded human lives for alien approval, to the Alliance bureaucrats who abandoned their own citizens to maintain peace with hostile empires, we say this: we are no longer your colonies. We are no longer your subjects. We serve a higher authority than political convenience. The Admiral's voice carried across space to reach every human settlement on the frontier. We serve the right of every human being to live free among the stars. We are the shield that guards the frontier, the sword that protects the innocent, and the promise that no human will ever be abandoned again. As Tucker's words echoed across the galaxy, alien empires began to understand a fundamental truth about humanity. The scattered, weak species that the Alliance had represented was gone. In its place stood something far more dangerous, a people united by shared purpose and unlimited by political compromise. The hegemony fleet that had been assembling to crush. The human rebellion suddenly faced a choice. They could attack the human colonies and face a war against people who had nothing left to lose, or they could recognize the new reality and learn to coexist with neighbors who were no longer willing to be victims. Standing on the observation deck where this had all begun, Jake looked out at a colony that had grown beyond his wildest dreams. Children who had been born on New Haven now played alongside others from across human space, united under the protection of the deadliest fleet ever assembled. The stars themselves seemed to whisper humanity's new creed. We are here. We remember. We never forgive. And we never abandon our own. The age of human expansion had begun not with exploration or diplomacy, but with the simple promise that no human settlement would ever stand alone again, and that promise would reshape the galaxy in ways that no one could yet imagine. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, watching the alien ship approach Haven Point Station. The vessel looked like someone had grown it instead of building it. Its surface moved like living skin, and strange lights pulsed along its hull. After 300 years of space travel, this was humanity's first contact with intelligent alien life. "Sir, they're requesting permission to dock," said Lieutenant Bobby Chen from the communications station. His voice carried excitement and fear in equal measure. Everyone on the bridge felt the same way. "Granted," Morrison replied. He adjusted his dress uniform and checked his weapon one more time. Protocol demanded that first contact be peaceful, but Morrison had survived too many battles to go anywhere unarmed. Dr. Lisa Carter joined him near the main screen. The xenobiologist had spent her entire career studying the possibility of alien life. Now, she would finally meet some. "The bio readings are incredible, Captain. Their ship is actually alive. It has a heartbeat." Morrison nodded but kept his eyes on the alien vessel. Something about its movements bothered him. It moved too smoothly, like a predator stalking prey. "Keep all sensors recording, Doctor. I want everything documented." 2 hours later, Morrison led the human delegation through Haven Point's main docking bay. The station buzzed with activity, as representatives from 12 different human colonies gathered to witness history. Ambassador Patricia Wells walked beside Morrison, her diplomatic training evident in every step. Behind them came Dr. Carter, Commander Paul Davis from Security, and a small team of specialists. The alien delegation waited in the station's central meeting hall. Morrison's first look at them made his skin crawl. They stood 7 feet tall with pale, translucent skin that showed veins underneath. Their faces were almost human, but wrong in ways he couldn't name. Their eyes were too large and completely black. When they moved, they seemed to flow like water. The lead alien stepped forward and spoke in perfect English. "I am High Arbiter, Keth Lanos of the Zeltharian Empire. We greet you on behalf of the Galactic Harmony Council." Morrison extended his hand for a handshake, but the alien ignored it. Instead, Keth Lanos made a gesture with both hands that looked like he was pushing something down. "I am Captain Jake Morrison, representing the United Earth Systems. We're honored to meet you." The alien's mouth moved in what might have been a smile, but it showed too many teeth. "Honor is earned through service, Captain Morrison. We have come to offer your species a great opportunity." Ambassador Wells stepped forward. "We're eager to learn about the galactic community and find our place within it." "Your place has already been determined," Kethalanos said. His voice carried strange harmonics that made Morrison's teeth ache. "The Galactic Harmony Council has studied your species from a distance. You show promise, but lack proper guidance. We offer you membership in our empire as a protected species." Dr. Carter frowned and checked her scanner. She whispered to Morrison, "Captain, they're emitting some kind of psychic frequency. It's designed to make us feel submissive." Morrison felt a strange pressure in his head, like someone was trying to push thoughts into his mind. The sensation made him angry instead of afraid. What exactly does protected species mean? Kethalanos waved his hand and images appeared in the air above them. The technology was far beyond anything humans possessed. The images showed worlds filled with different alien species, all working in perfect harmony under Zeltharian oversight. Protected species receive the benefits of galactic civilization, the alien explained. You will be relocated to suitable worlds where you can live in peace. Your aggressive tendencies will be corrected through proper education. Your brightest minds will serve in our research facilities where they can contribute to the greater good. Commander Davis stepped closer to Morrison. "Sir, that sounds like slavery with extra steps." Morrison studied the images more carefully. Every alien species looked docile and defeated. Their cities were clean and orderly, but they reminded him of prison camps. "What happens to our current colonies, our government, our military?" "Such primitive institutions are no longer necessary," Kethalanos replied. The psychic pressure increased, making several humans in the room look dizzy. "You will be given new purposes that serve the harmony of all species. Violence and competition will be eliminated from your nature." Ambassador Wells tried to maintain diplomatic protocol. "We appreciate the offer, but humanity values its independence. Perhaps we could discuss a different arrangement." The alien's expression shifted. His skin became darker, and the veins underneath pulsed with red light. "There is no negotiation. Species either accept protection or face correction. You have one standard day to agree to relocation." Morrison felt his temper rising. The psychic pressure that was supposed to make him submissive only made him want to fight. "And if we refuse?" Kethalanos gestured again, and new images appeared. They showed planets burning, cities destroyed, and piles of alien corpses. 17. Species have required correction. All eventually accepted our guidance. Your choice is submission or destruction. Dr. Carter's scanner started beeping rapidly. She looked at the readings and went pale. "Captain, there are ships approaching. Hundreds. Of them, the main screen activated, showing space around Haven Point. Zeltharian bioships were emerging from faster-than-light travel. Each one was larger than humanity's biggest battleships. Morrison counted 50 vessels before he stopped. More kept appearing. A demonstration of our commitment to galactic harmony, Kethlanos said. The psychic pressure intensified until some humans fell to their knees. Your primitive weapons cannot harm our vessels. Your scattered colonies cannot resist our empire. Submit now, and your species will be preserved. Morrison drew his sidearm and pointed it at the alien. The movement shocked everyone in the room. Get off my station! Kethlanos laughed, a sound like breaking glass. Your aggression proves our point. You require correction. The alien's form began to change. His arms extended into blade-like appendages, and his skin hardened into natural armor. Bioluminescent patterns flowed across his body, designed to trigger fear in other species. Morrison felt afraid, but he also felt something else: anger, determination, the need to protect his people. He pulled the trigger. The bullet struck the alien in the center of his chest. Kethlanos staggered backward, black blood flowing from the wound. His expression showed complete shock. The psychic pressure stopped as his concentration broke. Impossible, the alien whispered. No species can resist our influence. No species chooses violence over submission. You haven't met humans before, Morrison replied. He kept his weapon trained on the alien while addressing his team. Emergency evacuation. All personnel to the ships, now. The other Zeltharians moved to help their leader. But Commander Davis and his security team had drawn their weapons too. The alien's natural armor could deflect energy weapons, but human kinetic projectiles punched right through. Dr. Carter continued scanning while the evacuation proceeded. Captain, their psychic abilities require concentration. Physical pain disrupts them. They're not used to enemies that fight back. Morrison backed toward the exit, covering his team's retreat. How long do we have? The alien fleet is powering. Weapons, Davis reported. Maybe 10 minutes before they can fire. The human delegation reached their ships as Haven Point's evacuation sirens wailed. 50,000 beings from different species scrambled for escape pods and transport vessels. Most wouldn't make it. Morrison was the last to board the Defiance. As his ship pulled away from the station, he watched the Zeltharian fleet open fire. Energy beams turned Haven Point into vapor in seconds. 50,000 lives ended in an instant. Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the Zeltharian flagship, Lieutenant Chen reported. Put it through. Kethlanos appeared on the screen, his wound bandaged but his eyes burning with rage. You have chosen destruction, humans. Our fleet will visit every one of your colonies. Your species will learn the price of defiance. Morrison stared back at the alien. You want to teach us about violence? You just made a big mistake. Humans wrote the book on violence, and now you're going to learn why we're the only species on our planet that survived. The transmission ended. Morrison turned to his crew. Set course for Earth. Maximum speed. We need to warn them what's coming. As the Defiance jumped to faster-than-light travel, Morrison looked back at where Haven Point had been. The Zeltharians thought they were dealing with just another species to conquer. They had no idea what they had just awakened. The war was about to begin, and humanity was about to show the galaxy what real monsters looked like. Admiral Seth Karos stood in the command chamber of his flagship, watching the human colony world grow larger on the main display. New Texas looked like a typical frontier planet with scattered cities and agricultural zones. 2 million humans lived on its surface, completely unaware of their impending doom. The Zeltharian First Conquest Fleet had traveled for 2 weeks to reach this insignificant world. Seth Karos commanded over 1,000 bioships, the largest force ever assembled for a single conquest. The humans had destroyed Haven Point and killed a High Arbiter, crimes that demanded severe punishment. "Begin standard submission protocols," Seth Karos ordered. His communications officer, a young Zeltharian named Veltanos, activated the planet-wide broadcast system. The message that went out to New Texas was the same one the Empire had used for 2 centuries. It explained the benefits of joining Galactic: civilization, the futility of resistance, and the consequences of defiance. Most species surrendered within hours of receiving it. The lucky ones surrendered within minutes. The response from New Texas came back faster than expected. A human male appeared on the communication screen, wearing a simple work shirt and a wide-brimmed hat. He looked directly at Seth Karos with eyes that showed no fear. "This is Governor Dan Murphy of New Texas Colony. I got your message, and I got a message for you, too. You want our world? Come and take it." Seth Karos stared at the screen in confusion. The human had just refused the Empire's generous offer. More troubling, the psychic submission frequencies weren't working. The governor should be on his knees begging for mercy, not making threats. Veltanos, increase the psychic pressure. This human is clearly defective. The communications officer adjusted his controls, sending waves of fear and despair toward the planet. Most species would be paralyzed with terror at this point. Instead, more humans appeared on communication channels. Across the planet, they were organizing, preparing for battle, and some were actually laughing. "Sir, the humans are mobilizing their military forces," reported the sensor officer. "They're moving civilians to underground shelters and positioning defensive weapons around their cities." Seth Karos felt a strange sensation he had never experienced before: uncertainty. "Begin the landing. Deploy ground forces to the capital city. Show them what happens to species that resist." 3 hours later, the first Zeltharian drop pods landed in the outskirts of Austin City. Colonel Amy Rodriguez watched them from her command post in the city center, studying the alien tactics through her binoculars. The Zeltharians moved in perfect formations, their psychic abilities keeping them coordinated without radio communication. "They're expecting us to break and run," Rodriguez told her staff. "Every other species they've fought has done exactly that. But we're not every other species." Rodriguez had fought in 3 colonial wars before the aliens arrived. She knew how to kill, and more importantly, she knew how to make the enemy afraid. The aliens were about to learn the difference between conquest and war. The Zeltharians advanced into the city using standard pacification tactics. They moved slowly, broadcasting fear and despair, expecting the human defenders to surrender or flee. Instead, they walked into a carefully prepared trap. The first alien squad rounded a corner and triggered a massive, improvised explosive device. The blast turned 6 Zeltharians into bloody paste and wounded a dozen more. The survivors tried to retreat but found the street behind them blocked by burning vehicles. Private Tony Martinez fired the first shot of the ground war. His rifle bullet punched through Zeltharian armor like it was made of paper. The alien fell, backward, black blood pooling beneath its body. Martinez grinned and kept firing. "Holy shit, they bleed just like everything else," he shouted to his squad. The knowledge spread through the human forces like wildfire. The aliens weren't invincible gods. They were just another enemy to kill. The Zeltharians tried to use their psychic abilities to control the battle. They projected images of death and destruction into human minds, attempting to break morale. Some humans faltered, but others seemed to get stronger. The fear made them fight harder instead of surrender. Sergeant Lisa Park led a squad through the city's underground tunnels. They emerged behind Zeltharian lines and opened fire with automatic weapons. The aliens had never faced an enemy that used tunnels for tactical advantage. Their formations crumbled as humans attacked from unexpected directions. The Zeltharians deployed their terror weapons, creatures bred specifically to cause psychological damage. The monsters looked like something from humanity's worst nightmares, designed to trigger primal fear responses. They worked for about 30 seconds before human soldiers adapted. "Target the big ones first," shouted Lieutenant Dave Cooper, emptying his magazine into a terror beast. "They're just ugly animals. Kill them like any other animal." The battle raged for 6 hours before the Zeltharians made their first tactical retreat. They had never retreated from ground combat before. No species had ever forced them to withdraw from a battlefield. The human defenders cheered as alien forces pulled back to regroup. Admiral Seth Karos watched the battle reports with growing horror. His ground forces had suffered 30% casualties in the first engagement. The humans were using weapons and tactics that violated every principle of civilized warfare. "Sir, the humans are using explosive devices hidden in civilian areas," reported his intelligence officer. "They're targeting our supply lines with suicide attacks. They're using their own dead as bait for ambushes." Seth Karos felt another new emotion: disgust. "These creatures are savages. Deploy the fear gas. End this quickly." The Zeltharian bioships released clouds of psychoactive gas over Austin City. The weapons were designed to cause madness and despair in enemy populations. Most species exposed to the gas would kill themselves rather than continue fighting. The gas worked on some humans. Those affected screamed, ran in circles, or collapsed into catatonic states. But others seemed immune to its effects. Worse, some humans exposed to the gas became more dangerous instead of less. Major Pete Jackson breathed the fear gas and felt his mind fracture. But instead of breaking him, the madness made him creative. He rigged explosive devices using alien technology, created booby traps from common household items, and led his men in attacks that defied all tactical logic. "The gas is making them crazy, but not the right kind of crazy," Jackson reported to Colonel Rodriguez over a crackling radio. "They want us scared. I say we give them scared, but we do it our way." Rodriguez understood immediately. Fear was just another weapon, and humans had been using fear against their enemies for thousands of years. "All units, psychological warfare is authorized. Show these aliens what real monsters look like." The human counterattack began at dawn. Instead of trying to retake territory, they focused on making the Zeltharians afraid. Human soldiers painted their faces with alien blood and decorated their equipment with alien body parts. They played recordings of screaming over loudspeakers and left alien corpses in places where other aliens would find them. The Zeltharians had never encountered an enemy that used fear as a weapon. Their psychic abilities made them more sensitive to terror than other species. The human psychological tactics worked better than any conventional weapon. Captain Rick Stone led a squad that specialized in capturing alien prisoners. The Zeltharians expected interrogation to follow galactic conventions. Instead, they found humans who seemed to enjoy causing pain. Stone's methods would have been considered war crimes by galactic standards, but they produced results. "They're not gods," Stone reported after his 5th successful interrogation. "They're just bullies who never got punched in the face. They break when you hurt them enough." Dr. Helen Brooks studied captured Zeltharian equipment in a makeshift laboratory. The alien technology was advanced but not impossible to understand. Human engineers had always been good at taking things apart and putting them back together in new ways. "Their weapons are designed for psychological warfare," Brooks explained to anyone who would listen. "They're not built to fight enemies who keep coming after being hurt. We can turn their own technology against them." The siege of Austin City lasted 3 weeks. When it finally ended, the Zeltharians controlled a burned-out shell of a city. But they had lost 40% of their ground forces. More importantly, they had lost something else: their confidence. Admiral Seth Karos stood in his command chamber, staring at casualty reports that made no sense. His forces had superior technology, superior numbers, and superior psychic abilities. They should have conquered New Texas in a matter of days. Instead, the humans had fought like demons. They had used tactics that no civilized species would consider. They had turned their own fear into a weapon and used their enemy's strength against them. They had taken alien technology and made it more deadly. "Sir, "We're receiving a transmission from High Command," Veltanos reported. "They're demanding an explanation for our delays." Seth Karos knew his career was over. No Zeltharian admiral had ever failed to conquer a single planet. No Zeltharian force had ever suffered such casualties against a primitive species. But worse than professional failure was the knowledge that haunted him. The humans weren't just fighting to win. They were fighting to make sure their enemies suffered. They were teaching the Zeltharians that Terra were worse things than death. They were Captain Ray Bennett stood on the bridge of the UES Vengeance, watching the Zeltharian Second Conquest Fleet emerge from faster-than-light travel. 6 months had passed since the disaster at New Texas, and the aliens had returned with twice as many ships. They clearly expected this battle to go differently. Bennett smiled grimly as he studied the enemy formation. The aliens had no idea what they were about to face. In 6 months, humanity had accomplished something that should have taken decades. They had become a true war machine. "All ships, this is Vengeance Actual," Bennett transmitted to the human fleet. "Remember what they did to Haven Point. Remember what they tried to do to New Texas. Today we show them what happens when you attack humanity." The Vengeance was humanity's first true warship, built from scratch using captured Zeltharian technology. Dr. Karen White and her engineering team had done the impossible. They had taken alien biotechnology and improved it. The ship's hull was part metal and part living tissue, stronger than either material alone. "Enemy fleet is moving into attack." "Formation," reported Lieutenant Commander Susan Miller from the tactical station. 350 vessels, all larger than our biggest ships. Bennett nodded. The Zeltharians still had superior numbers and firepower, but they were fighting the last war, and humanity had moved on to something new. "Launch all fighters. Begin attack run Alpha." The human fighter squadrons screamed toward the alien fleet at impossible speeds. Commander Steve Price led the first wave, flying a fighter that looked like nothing else in the galaxy. Human engineers had mated Zeltharian bioengines with human weapons systems, creating hybrid craft that outperformed anything either species had built alone. "Remember, they expect us to use energy weapons like every other species," Price transmitted to his pilots. "Let's introduce them to good old-fashioned kinetic energy." The Zeltharian fleet activated their defensive screens, energy barriers designed to deflect the plasma weapons that every galactic species used in combat. The barriers worked perfectly against energy attacks. They were useless against the tungsten core, missiles that human fighters carried. Price watched his missiles punch through alien shields like they weren't there. Each missile struck a bioship with the force of a small asteroid, tearing massive holes in living hulls. Black blood and other fluids sprayed into space as the alien vessels writhed in pain. Lieutenant Nancy Bell flew beside Price, her fighter loaded with experimental weapons that Dr. White's team had developed. Instead of missiles, she carried devices that broadcast human thoughts and emotions directly into alien bioships. The weapons were more effective than conventional explosives. "Target the command ship," Price ordered. "Let's cut the head off this snake." The Zeltharian flagship was a massive creature that looked more like a living whale than a spaceship. Admiral Keth Varos commanded the Second Fleet from inside its brain cavity, directing the battle through direct neural connection. He was about to learn that some connections went both ways. Bell's experimental weapon struck the flagship's psychic transmitters. Instead of receiving orders from their admiral, every ship in the Zeltharian fleet suddenly experienced human thoughts. Rage, determination, the willingness to die for others, the refusal to surrender. Emotions that no Zeltharian had ever felt flooded their collective consciousness. The alien formation broke apart as individual ships began acting erratically. Some vessels turned on their own allies. Others simply stopped moving as their crews struggled with alien emotions. A few actually self-destructed rather than experience human feelings. "What the hell did you do, Bell?" Price asked as he watched the enemy fleet tear itself apart. "Gave them a taste of what it's like to be human," Bell replied. "They can't handle it." Admiral Keth Varos felt his mind fragmenting as human thoughts invaded his consciousness. The aliens' psychic abilities made them vulnerable to mental attacks in ways they had never imagined. He tried to cut the neural connection to his fleet, but the damage was already done. Captain Bennett watched the enemy fleet dissolve into chaos and knew this was humanity's moment. All ships, full attack. Show them no mercy. The UES Vengeance led the human fleet into the heart of the alien formation. Bennett's ship was armed with weapons that violated every galactic convention of warfare. Kinetic kill vehicles accelerated to near-light speed. Biological weapons designed specifically to target Zeltharian DNA. Nuclear missiles with guidance systems that could track individual alien officers. The Zeltharians tried to fight back, but their weapons were designed for psychological warfare, against species that valued survival above victory. Humans proved immune to fear-based attacks and responded to pain by fighting harder. Every alien advantage became a human opportunity. Dr. Clark Davis watched the battle from the research vessel, UES Darwin, collecting data on alien weaknesses. The biochemist had spent months studying captured Zeltharian specimens, learning how their biology worked. Now he was putting that knowledge to deadly use. "Deploy the plague bombs," Davis ordered his team. "Let's see how they like biological warfare when it's aimed at them." The human bioweapons were crude compared to alien technology, but they were effective. Clouds of engineered bacteria spread through the Zeltharian fleet, targeting the aliens' unique biology. Ships that had been living organisms began dying from the inside out. Commander Tony Rodriguez led a boarding party onto a crippled alien vessel. His Marines were equipped with hybrid armor that combined human engineering with alien materials. They moved through the bioship's corridors like armored nightmares, killing everything they encountered. "Secure the bridge," Rodriguez ordered. "I want prisoners for interrogation." The Zeltharians they captured were in shock. They had never imagined that prey species could become predators. They begged for mercy in languages that humans couldn't understand, but their terror was universal. Major Frank Miller specialized in psychological warfare against alien enemies. His interrogation methods would have horrified galactic civilization, but they produced results. Within hours, he had extracted complete tactical information about the Zeltharian Empire. "They've conquered 17 species over 2 centuries, Miller reported to Fleet Command. Every single conquest followed the same pattern: fear, submission, slavery. They've never fought anyone who fought back." The battle lasted 18 hours and ended with the complete destruction of the Second Conquest Fleet. Only a handful of Zeltharian ships escaped to carry word back to their empire. The survivors carried with them something new: knowledge that there was a species in the galaxy that could not be conquered. Admiral Keth Varos died when his flagship's brain finally succumbed to the human bioweapons. His last thoughts were of confusion and terror. The Zeltharians had ruled the galaxy for centuries by convincing other species they were gods. The humans had just proven they were mortals. Captain Bennett stood in the wreckage-filled space where the alien fleet had been, watching his crews salvage useful technology from the dead bioships. Human engineers were already reverse engineering alien systems, finding ways to make them more efficient and more deadly. "Sir, we're receiving transmissions from the outer colonies," reported Lieutenant Miller. "They want to know what our next move is." Bennett smiled. The Zeltharians had made a critical error. They had assumed that humanity would react like every other species they had conquered. Instead, humans had done what they always did when faced with an existential threat. They had adapted, innovated, and become more dangerous than their enemies. "Tell the colonies to prepare for offensive operations," Bennett said. "We're not just going to defend our worlds. We're going to take the fight to them." Dr. White joined Bennett on the bridge, carrying data tablets filled with technical specifications. "Captain, we've learned enough from their technology to build faster-than-light drives. We can reach their territory within weeks." Bennett studied the technical readouts. Human engineers had taken Zeltharian biotechnology and transformed it into something the aliens would never recognize. Hybrid ships that were stronger, faster, and more deadly than anything either species had built alone. How many ships can we build in the next month? With full wartime production, maybe 50 new vessels? But they'll be better than anything the aliens have. Bennett nodded. The Zeltharians had started this war expecting a quick conquest. Instead, they had awakened something that would haunt their empire for generations to come. They had turned peaceful humans into efficient killers. They had taught humanity to hate. "Begin construction immediately," Bennett ordered. "We're going to visit their worlds. We're going to show them what their victims felt like. And we're going to make sure they never forget what happens when you attack humanity." The Second Conquest Fleet was gone, but its destruction was just the beginning. Humanity had tasted victory, and they wanted more. The Zeltharians had ruled the galaxy through fear for 2 centuries. Now they were about to learn what real fear felt like. As the human fleet prepared to leave New Texas orbit, Bennett looked at the planet below. 6 months ago, it had been a peaceful agricultural colony. The Zeltharian attack had transformed it into humanity's